to the T.R.A.I.N program, Ethical Practices in the Arts. My name is Taiwo Afolabi, and I'm doing this alongside Jemma. Thank you for being on the journey with us. This is going to be episode 4, Ethics of Justice. And then in the first episode, we just kind of set the background regarding what ethics is and some of those areas that we're going to be exploring. The second topic, we considered ethical questioning as a tool to really engage art forms and the questions and the decisions we're making, whether from a sustainability lens, from anti-racism lens, in any other lens that we choose. But what we did say is at the heart of ethical questioning is the process of constantly questioning, constantly asking and going back with developing quality questions. And there are times that we may not necessarily have all the answers to them, but thinking about that before the project, during the project, and after the project. And those are really very critical. The third episode, we considered ethics of critique, which we said it's ethic of critique from the word critique is always a critical exploration of the process. And we did note that considering background and where we're coming from, when we were looking at the subject of ethics, the word ethics may not necessarily gel for us, or we may not necessarily use the word ethics. It could be agency, it could be access. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here by using, with the word ethics or by this exploration is to create an opportunity for us to be in right relationship with the other. At the heart of that is relationality. At the heart of that is accountability, responsibility, knowing fully well that we're relational and social beings. And so our work as artists, or whatever role or position that we occupy within the ecosystem, these critical ideas have to be centered in our work. In this episode, we're considering ethics of justice. Ethics of justice focuses on right and law, and is part of a liberal democratic tradition that, according to Delgado in 1995, is characterized by incrementalism, faith in the legal system, and hope for progress. In fact, Starrett in 1994 described the ethics of justice as emanating from two schools of thought. And these schools of thought are from the work of different scholars and philosophers like Kant and Hobbes and Aristotle and Hegel and Marx. And we're not going to bother you with all of those details. But summarily, the two schools of thought, the first one considers the individual as central and sees social relationships as a type of a social contract where the individual, using human reason, gives up some right for the good of the whole or for social justice. The second school of thought tends to see society rather than the individual as central and teaches to teach and seeks to teach individuals how to behave throughout their life within communities. So the first school of thought really considers the individual and the need to sort of let go of some rights for the social good. But the second school of thought sees the society rather than the individual, and central sees the society as central and seeks to teach individuals how to behave throughout their life within communities. The times that many cultures tend to fall to the extreme, either they're engaging the first school of thought or engaging the second school of thought. And hopefully more and more, there might be need to bring the both school of thought together to inform our way of reasoning. So whether from a traditional idea around ethics of justice or contemporary perspective, we have to take into consideration that at the heart of that is thinking about the ethical dilemmas and how to engage human rights, laws, rules and regulations, bylaws, and all of those kind of legal principles, whether soft law or hard law. But at the heart of that is to create an enabling environment where the right of the people thrives. So to put this in perspective in terms of how does this really affect us in terms of our work, I'll give two examples. For some of us that sit within the academia and work in community, in the academia, there's always the ethics review board. And the history of this came really largely from a very science-oriented background. The International Ethics Review Board, different universities and funding agencies, depending on the jurisdiction one finds oneself, different review boards, ethics board, review the work. In some places, it's important and it's a prerequisite to getting funded. And so the idea of even reviewing that, the idea of going over, legislation, laws, and all that is an example of ethics of justice. So in the context of Canada and the academia, we have what is called the TCPS, we have what is called the Tri Council Ethics Manual. And TCPS2 is useful. It's sort of what guides research. There are multiple chapters in the book, and then it's updated at different points in time. And then, it addresses issues around confidentiality, anonymity, compensation, working with indigenous communities. At the heart of TCPS2 is the need to uphold human dignity, justice for all, again, create a system where researchers are responsible and accountable. Now, that's an example of ethics of justice from the perspective of a foundation of legal principles and ideals. There's different applications, funding applications that ask you questions that one has to take a lens of ethics of justice into that. For example, the Canada Council for the Arts would ask, is it focusing on indigenous communities? And the same thing, even in funding like shock application and different other applications like that. This important function is evident in laws related to education. And in many instances, courts have been reluctant to impose restrictions on school officials, funding agencies, thus allowing them considerable discretion in making important administrative decisions. At the same time, again, because it has to do with laws and rules and regulations, and so the times that, courts are involved, and court opinions often reflect the values of the education community and, of course, the society at large. Finally, what is to be done when law is wrong, such as Jim Crow laws supporting racial segregation, which was noted in T.R.A.I.N 1994. And of course, there are other examples out there. It is also in such instances that the ethics of justice may overlap with other paradigms, such as ethics of critique. And I think in ethics of critique, one thing that I did mention is that a lot of the time, ethics of critique, it really come to question and challenge ethics of justice. So summarily, ethics of justice considers ethics from the lens of law, right, policies, and legality. It centers the law. It centers the mandate of the court. It centers things that has to do with legal principles. And the whole idea is that to be able to help researchers, artists, funders, and any other person involved in working in community to be able to deal responsively, accountably with the community members using the laws available. On the other hand, which is the critique of justice of ethics of justice, is a lot of the time too, ethics of justice at times is an opportunity to exonerate. It's sort of what I call like a liability checkmate, check and balances, because no organization wants to be held responsible or liable, all right? So by engaging ethics of justice is an opportunity to be able to say, hey, we want you to follow all of these rules and regulations because 2 years from now, 1 year from now, and in the future, we don't want to be dragged into the law court, all right, to answer A, B, C, or whatever complaint. That's the summary of ethics of justice. Happy to answer any question during our conversation. I hope you can engage with the reading and also listen to the podcast about ethics of justice. And then I do hope that the workbook also you find it useful. For any question, happy to chat during our one-on-one interactive session. Anyways, do have a lovely day, and we're looking forward to seeing you on Saturday.